Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. I like the look, Jim.
Yeah, I was kind of dressing up for today. Just to kind of.
Is it because I just found out randomly on Twitter, that you're releasing some white paper right in time when Pfizer released their news. So just
right. Tell the world. Yeah. So we've taken the Health Beacon technology and have recalibrated it to track and manage and build out a vaccination administration system. So we did a study of 50 patients where we vaccinated them against influenza and tested the whole system and validated it. So we're launching a white paper for a little Health Beacon.
So many things happening this week. Amazon Pharmacy announcement, right? The vaccine, 95%.
Yeah, they're all hitting 95%. There was all the guidance around, from the EMEA about administering these COVID-19 vaccinations. The world's in a tailspin. Innovation, it's up, it's down. It's.
I just wish it came a little. So we have a COVID hit here in this household. Marina tested positive this morning. Yeah. So, hopefully recovering quick. She lost her smell last week sometime, which pre-diagnosed as that.
Okay.
But we'll get on the other side of it.
Okay.
Hence, it feels like a Friday already, even though it's a Wednesday. But what else? I know it kind of feels like cheating on you, but a little trailer of Digital Health Today with Eugene Borohovich has been out there. I'll have I think a more permanent guest, Brian Dolan from Exits and Outcomes. I know I've chatted with Marty, so this is covering the whole digital therapeutics arena. So a lot of this pre-recording professionally will be done over the next couple of months, and then hopefully released Digital Health Today with Eugene and DTX next year, 2020.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to subscribe. I'm definitely in. It's a big space, man. It's a big space.
And lastly, before we let our guest in, and you'll do the intro. I know we had an awesome call Monday. We want to announce who's helping us with our tabletop coffee book of Shot of Digital Health. But our combined foray from a meticulously unproduced to meticulously unwritten is ongoing.
I think this will be one of the most important pieces of literature, to be released from an unproduced podcast, during the as a qualification.
Cool. Love it. So somebody who is in the midst of it all, actually, I think is our first guest from the hospital system. But I'll let you maybe do a quick intro and then.
Yeah, we'll bring him in right away as I'm introducing him. Sure. So we're delighted to we have Chris Coburn, who is Chief Innovation Officer for Mass General Brigham. So people know that as Partners, and I think he's also President of Partners Innovation. Hey, there he is.
Lads, how are we today?
Good, man. Good. I thought
Chris, you're the first one with a tie on our show. Just that's you win the prize.
I just came from another thing. Should I take it off?
No, keep it. We like it.
Are we live video or just audio?
We're live video.
Oh, and are you guys both in Dublin right now, or where are you?
I'm in Barcelona.
He's in Barcelona. I'm in Dublin. In the Health Beacon offices here.
We met at a couple of Health Excel.
We met at a couple of Health Excels, and then I did like a crazy fire through Boston at your big event. So, you're the host there, so 1,000+ people.
Anything that I don't have to do heavy lifting for is good.
Right. So is that the background, or where were we in Boston?
Until this last weekend, I was in the shed in our place in Brewster.
Okay.
Where I was exiled by my family, but we don't have heat there, so we had to abandon ship and come back to Boston. So this is the top floor of our house.
Okay, fantastic. So I was just doing an introduction, but I was thinking how actually my introduction to Chris it had to be Martin Kelly, right? So Martin Kelly was kind of we met in Manhattan, was it?
Yeah, I think so. But we also know some other people
Right.
too in Carmen.
Yeah.
We,
But
we
yeah,
keep
so
we keep saying, Chris, that all the roads somehow lead to an Irish bar.
right,
So-
I'm sure we'll have a chance to discuss O'Donohue's or other
Yeah,
places
yeah.
we miss.
I don't know if you know the backdrop of the show here, but this is the show is largely it's a therapeutic intervention for Eugene, to my left here that we get
And
to
for
hang.
Jim to my left. So don't just blame it on me.
So it was an idea when he left Bear, and I was saying he had a big social media following. I'm like, you should do a podcast. And then when everything hit the fan, I'm like, oh, you now need to do it because you needed to kind of just hang out.
And Chris, he did drag me out. Like, it was just crazy time. I mean, a lot of our listeners and viewers heard this 27 times already, but it was purely therapeutic. It's like just a shot of digital health at the bar, and we invite people. I love it.
We would be together in a pub somewhere if it was a different time.
Right. Yes. So maybe just I know most people know you, but maybe just a little bit. I did a bad job just describing your role, but maybe just tell people who Chris Coburn is in a quick flash.
Yeah. Well, we're the business development arm for Mass General Brigham. We're a very large system, and we are the largest academic research center in the U.S. with about $2 billion a year in research. Our faculty is appointed at Harvard. We have about 4,000 Harvard faculty members. And, I think we're at the cutting edge of change in healthcare, whether it's in the delivery of care or the therapies that help people get better, or on the digital side, the utilization of any number of tools to improve care, its outcomes, its delivery, its cost.
And Chris, because we got tons of questions, right? I mean, you're actually our first guest from a hospital system. This is season 3, and this is the first time, I think. But let's back up, because I kind of hinted. I listened to one of the Health Excel podcasts with your brilliant background, but obviously, who are you? Maybe in like 30, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, because I know you and I kind of met very briefly, but probably.
So I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm the 6th of 7 children. I think coming from a large family gives you an unfair advantage in large organizations, in the sense that, especially if you're at the back end, anything you want to accomplish, you have to do it starting from a basis of disempowerment. So it's on you to figure out how to get people to move in the same direction. Went to a Jesuit university undergrad in Cleveland, grad school in DC. Worked at NIH. I also worked on Capitol Hill. I worked for Governor of Ohio, big urban state, very liberal governor, Rhodes Scholar, briefly a presidential candidate. And then I went from there to working for Battelle Memorial Institute, which is a multi-billion-dollar technology organization. And then in 2000, I went to Cleveland Clinic, and 8 years ago, I went to Mass General Brigham.
Time flies, huh?
Yeah.
It hasn't been up to much.
Yeah.
No. You mentioned something, and Jim, I'll dive into one of them, right? So obviously I don't know if Jim warned you, we don't say the bad terms.
Yeah, appropriately.
But only very appropriately, and if you do, Jim raises a little thing. But given what we're going through, and there's a lot of discussions. I mean, just so much pressures on hospital systems. Some people are questioning, just even financially, how many will survive. And then how do you balance that with actually innovating, which I think, what I'm hearing from the ground, especially from the startups, is actually a lot of deals are now getting done just because you need to optimize it. So maybe you're kind of in the front lines there as well. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, a couple quick thoughts, and we can go deeper if you want. I think, first of all, in terms of the response, it's important for people to recognize, it wasn't like this all just started in the middle of March in the U.S. The frontline caregivers, the infectious disease, the people greeting the patients in the front door, we're already at it full time for 6 or 8 weeks prior to that. So, the prep, just getting ready for a tsunami of sick people, put them under pressure at that time, and it's been unremitting since then. So, that is ongoing, and obviously nearly the entire US is a hot zone at the moment.
Yeah.
I think you have to see that, though, in the context of what was going on in healthcare prior. So we were in a period of accelerated change, and then this came on top of it. So fortunately for us, we made a decision more than a year ago, driven by our CEO, Ann Klebansky, to invest in digital health in a way at a magnitude we had not previously. This is a $500 million commitment. We brought in a Chief Digital Health Officer, a physician, Alistair Erskine. And thankfully that was all in place when this occurred. And consequently, things that had been identified were able to be acted on in weeks rather than months or longer. And important to say, it's not like the issues or the technologies weren't known. I think to the great credit of the provider community, it was a question of setting priorities, identifying paths, and then acting on them. And again, people working around the clock to respond to it. So yes, it is from a technology or company standpoint, this is a very fertile period. And then, worth noting, just on therapeutic development, this has been throughout the last 10 months a very torrid market for investment in new technology, whether it's digital or laboratory based.
One of the things I was wondering about was just in thinking, like a lot of the people we've had on, we've talked about the mental health issues of that kind of managing through keeping your energy levels, whether you're building companies or introducing new technology. And I until you were saying it, my sister is actually a nurse in your, in the partner system at Brigham's. And she was on it and I was watching what she was going through. Like, is there a lot of, are they applying a lot of digital health tools, like a lot of this mental health management stuff, staff? Is that a big, I never really thought of that before, but.
Yeah, so a couple things. Just as a reminder, another example of our change, our new name is Mass General Brigham, not the word you said a few minutes ago.
Yeah, Mass General, right? Yes, right.
So Chris, you need to get the same little sign that Jim has right. For C19 for partners.
Yes. So, but Jim, you're right on the money in the sense of behavioral health was of course an enormous area. It's in some categories the second largest area of spend from a payer standpoint. So a lot of interest in using digital tools, and I'm sure you've tracked some of those companies. You're involved with some of them. So again, in this period since March, there's an ever greater need. And one of our eminent psychiatrists just released a paper in the last week or so that got picked up in the national news, talking about the level of depression for adolescents in the US. And that was just the slice. You could have also talked about other age groups. And it is a historically trying time. And so that shows itself in patient volumes and the level of needs in things like behavioral health. So digital is absolutely a response to the growth in digital, or part of the growth in digital is absolutely a response to that. And that'll only get larger over time.
Yeah.
You mentioned as one of how many kids? 7, 8, you said? Sorry.
7 of us growing up.
Convincing and navigating and, for lack of a better term, let's just call it simply change management of your brothers and sisters is probably a skill that you learn, right? And I'm just kind of, I still have tire marks on my back a bit from a corporate world, but, being in a hospital system where I think everybody is highly operational in a sense of, you have human beings with problems coming in. Can you talk a little bit about change management
Sure.
there, and maybe a couple of keys to, I don't think any one of us really figured it out unless you have, but I'd love to hear a couple of points on change management in large systems.
Yeah, and just starting with large families, I do think there's a Darwinian element in any big family, particularly if you're at the back end. So, playing for stakes is something you learn early, especially if you want to eat. But I would say, in terms of change management, key thing is understanding how do decisions get made, how do priorities get set, and even if you were to say, well, we don't do that, you do it anyways. It occurs in any setting, even if you're backing into it. So I think having a realistic view of the dynamics of the organization and how to then shift them is very important. And I don't want to overstate my role or my office's role in our giant organization of 80,000 people, but so we're among many who are evolving the organization to a new level. But I think for any circumstance, any set of people, being clear-eyed about historically how priorities been made, how does it been set, how does the culture express itself, and then how do we approach changing? And I think the more the clearer you can think, and not to go back to the Jesuits, but I always think a great test for hiring someone is a writing sample. If you write well, then you think clearly, and if you don't, you don't. So I really think you've got to be able to be concise about the issues and what you're trying to achieve.
I'm gonna take that on. I think every candidate, we're gonna make them write a
It's good.
a summary of a Shot of Digital Health episode. That's right. What we're gonna have them do.
Right. Like we had Unity Stoakes, startup, health. He had last week, and he was doing this kind of batteries. He was talking about this batteries included people.
Yeah.
People that come into the room with their, with batteries and their own energy, or people that kind of drain the room of energy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I know it was a good kind of. But I was thinking, whenever I meet you, so I think of you when I meet you, like that. We had Lee Shapiro on, and he was talking about his approach to work, like how does he maintain the work and the rhythm. And you seem to like traveling the world, hitting conferences, always ready to go. And like, do you have like, so when I thought of that, I think of your biking, right? You're a big biker. I think of like you're kind of, you love like arts and like the reading and like, give us a little like, how does Chris kind of keep the batteries included recipe?
Or batteries recharged, really, right?
Well, I do think having, whatever your passions are is really important. On the bike side, I have done my share of biking, including going across the US. I biked in Ireland. And it is a joyful experience, being out there in motion. Also, I'm very partial to things where you have goals that you can accomplish. I painted houses for a little bit during college, and I love that job because you'd show up, and then you'd work, and then you'd leave for the day, and there was no question what you'd done. And that's not true in every job. And, you can spend months and not be quite sure. So biking's the same way. You're moving from a spot to another spot. It's you. It's your reward, and it's also you get a benefit. I've pretty much given up golf. I play once every couple of years, and I think golf can be a lot of fun if you really put the time into it. But to me, biking is so much more aligned, spiritually, about things you can accomplish. reading, I have to say the last 8 or 9 months is, really driven
Tough.
home that category. And then our TV, we didn't have a TV for 13 years when our kids were young. So I got away from watching TV and particularly some of the big series.
Right.
So I watched on this break.
So you have a lot to catch up on, basically.
Yeah, I watched all of Game of Thrones, every single episode. I watched every single episode of Homeland.
Okay.
And then more recently catching up on lots of things tied to Ireland, like the series Normal People.
Right.
We loved Dairy Girls before this year, and we enjoy it now. Even watched The Commitments for the first time in 25 years.
Yeah.
So, but on the reading end, again, a kind of a bit of Irish authors over the last several months. Tana French, who actually was born in the U.S. but has been living in Dublin for 30 years. And then with John Banville.
Right.
I did his, actually, ironically, he's got a whole series on a Dublin-based pathologist under his Benjamin Black name. And I had actually gotten at least one of our pathologists to read some of it. Sally Rooney. It's funny. She's from Castlebar, which is where my father's family was from, and I think actually one of my cousins, or the wife of one of my cousins, might have taught her in grade school.
Okay.
And I feel some allegiance, having been a college debater myself. That was one of her early things. So, anyways, lots of reading, lots of enjoyment. Particularly over the last year, despite all this isolation.
So we got the Chris Coburn. What about a Spotify list? No.
I sadly predictable for my age group. You can imagine what's on there.
Yeah, I created at the beginning of this, I created we'll say the C word. I created a plague Spotify list that we put out earlier on of the songs you need to be listening. Remember that at the beginning?
Yeah. Actually, Jim, you know what? Why don't you resurrect that, and we'll actually add it to the show notes, the Spotify list.
Yeah, because I was totally embracing music like in a big way. I was thinking, but if so my namesake James Joyce, if he were to write a writing sample to do a job with you, I mean, I'm not sure he. The punctuation
so the last paragraph of The Dead, I want that read at my funeral, and I want him to play Carrickfergus. Those are it makes my kids crazy when they have to listen to that again and again.
Do they love Ireland as much as you do?
Oh yeah. Just before, like the first week in March, Nancy, my wife, and our 2 daughters, Carolyn and Bridget, were in Ballymaloo, and that was a return visit for them. It's the short hop. Everyone loves going. Our son Sean. So no, it's certainly a place of great fondness.
So Eugene, Chris did the so we've gotten like a bunch of guys my age now. We do all the cold swimming every Saturday. So we do it all the way through the year. But Chris, we went out to the Aran Islands with one of the Health Excel events.
That's like one of the very few that I actually missed.
We brought this up on the show a bunch. Remember the island and everyone, so we jumped in. Into Chris. You went in the icy cold water.
Never travel without your Speedo. It's one of my rules.
Thanks for giving all of us the visual, Chris.
I've swum in that pool at Trinity a number of times. It's featured in Normal People.
Is it?
I get it that Normal People's kind of controversial in Ireland because it's like some of the sensibilities are more American than Irish.
Right.
But anyways.
Chris, I'd love to maybe jump back to some of the innovations. So we actually a little pimping out. We're at like 900 delegates, which is insane, for tomorrow's Global Health and Wellbeing Coaching Symposium. A little plug. But anyway, one of the topics is like food and music as medicine. And, we talked about music, we talked about books and arts. I'm just curious, is there anything interesting that you're witnessing and seeing kind of more on the ground within the innovations?
Yeah, well, on that topic, aesthetics, food, music, art, clearly there's a direct tie with well-being, and that's lots of folks have been working in that field. I'm not so up on some of the digital products there, but whether it's general behavioral health or recovery from surgery, those things really matter, and I know many caregivers have prioritized that. In a general sense, it is a challenging time. So these solutions are coming in torrents now, and I think one of the challenges is if
sorting
you
through them all.
Sorting and being selective. It's one of the reasons we just launched an AI and digital fund. We've had great success. We participated in a company, Health Catalyst, that had come to us when they were very small. Our IS people picked them to provide a data warehouse service over some large incumbents. And then that led to an investment, co-development, population health, another investment. And they went public a couple of years ago, and we own more than 1 million shares of the company. So we want to be digital investors for a reason like that. But the other equivalent reason is the discipline of assessing the overall digital marketplace on an ongoing basis is very important for us, because as we adopt these technologies to improve care or improve margin, they're out there to meet needs that we have, and as a system as big as we are, there are many of them.
Yeah. So I actually, to be honest, didn't realize it just because I'm not tracking kind of the investments by hospital. I'm not. So maybe you can dive a little bit deeper on some of the investments if that's public info.
Yeah. So
but the fund itself, right? I don't know how you guys are set up, just for our viewers.
So historically, we've had a fund that's mostly focused on therapeutics and exclusively on technologies that emerge from within our system. 171 million under management. We're now raising Fund 3, which the target is 250 million of new capital. But at the same time, and we've done digital deals in that, but at the same time, we decided to that and have an exclusively digital fund. This 30 million, the acronym AI and Digital Innovation, we called ADIF. And the focus, as I said, typically smaller investments, 500K to maybe 2 million, but where we're participating in co-development or we're a customer. So, we've already, in a sense, validated the technology from that standpoint. And the direct answer to your question is, we were all set to go at the beginning of this year, all approved, the money was in hand. And then when things pivoted, that went on hold. So we are likely to make our first investment next month or January. And we see the 30 million as really kind of proving the concept that we can have a fund in this defined category, and also changing our model slightly where we're not just looking at things from inside our giant system, but also any.
Yeah, I think it's Chris's network. It happens as he's talking about money.
In the market.
You're back.
Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
If I was still in the shed, if I was still in the bike shed, we would have better reception.
But Eugene's thought you just made an investment in his fund, in his company.
That's what I thought. That's what I heard.
However we send each other those signals. That's good. So, but anyway, we will make the first investment, hopefully this year or early next year. And what we're really doing is proving this to ourselves and to our system. We count 36 hospital managed digital funds in the US.
Okay.
Providence is a very large, they just put I think they've got 300 million total that they put into it. So yeah, there's a lot to work with there.
Do you think, like, again, back to you, like in terms of managing, like, so getting that fund, kind of that initiative of like establishing the fund or putting in a certain direction, or, like how you've managed, like with Cleveland Clinic, integrating it into, a larger ecosystem, and then you've done it now with Mass General Brigham, is like the role that you had in, so working for politicians and kind of acting as a statesman and kind of having these big, because I'm always fascinated by that, like these big long-term initiatives where things take time. I'm much more impatient than that. I need, more. Do you take a lot of that from like working in like a political environment? Does that stay with you?
Well, I would say two things. First of all, almost everyone who goes into the public sector is in there for the same reason people go into healthcare, because they want to help people, they want to solve problems, they want to do something productive and special with their time, on this planet. So I don't think it's that big of a jump myself. But second of all, I would say, I worked on Capitol Hill. I worked for the governor of Ohio for 8 years, as I said. Issues that we really care about now in healthcare were the top issues when I was working in the public sector. Gender, just to pick that. The commitment to that from the governor of Ohio, his whole team, the managers he picked, was demonstrable throughout the time we worked together. And you couldn't, I started early. I was, 27 years old. I had one time 90 people reporting to me. But you couldn't help but learn those lessons about how important those were. On race, I worked for an African-American congressman. His brother was very famous. He was as well, Louis Stoakes. His brother was the first Black mayor of a major city in the US. So, when you live in those, you learn it in a way that it would be difficult just to read about, or to be, have some consultant talk to you. So, I see those as some of the great lessons of that time. And then, maybe just communicating change. When I was working for the governor, the unemployment rate when he got elected in Ohio was 14.7%. An area of the US that a lifetime with a large manufacturer was the expected deal when people got out of high school or community or trade school, and that whole thing was fractured. So being resourceful in a period of stress, being able to see from a community standpoint what really mattered. I think, at least for me, many of those issues, when we talk about access to care and equities, the fundamental issues are very similar. And you walk a mile with someone, you're working in inner city Cleveland, representing a congressman. I was based in DC, but when you're back in Cleveland, you see life in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
It's, it's funny. This morning I had one of the serendipity calls that I have, and somebody said, well, you're writing this book about basically like corporate politics and pharma, right? And I said, honestly, it's not about politics, it's just human beings, right? There's people that love certain things, there's people that hate certain things. And that's, I think, the balance of change management that I think, Chris, you've been talking about, is how do you pull people together? How do you, get them on the same or similar road? So I think there are similarities, kind of, you can call it politics, but it's just human nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. And
I'm getting
I think,
philosophical.
and the thing about being in the provider world in healthcare, there's not as much defined hierarchy as there is, let's say in the corporate world. And you got to be facile. You got to be able to work around those kind of issues. And again, it comes down to understanding or trying to understand what are the dynamics that others are experiencing in the organization, or what's the history of one element or another.
Yeah. And we get it like, so I have two thoughts. So one is comparing, like I was saying, so you were involved with Explorers, right? And so I thought of Explorers as like I remember, meeting the team, and that felt like one of the first kind of exits, for kind of a digital health play. I mean, it felt like one of the most material ones at the time, and it was ages ago, right? And then now we have the exits that are happening, like, via like the ones, we talked about, like Health Catalyst that you're involved in, like kind of compare and contrast, and like, seeing both sides of that spectrum. Are they very different? Is it people thinking very differently? The company's very different?
Well, I think that's a great point. I suppose if you were to plot it and go back a decade, you would see these dots going up on the curve, and Explorers would be, I think, one of the early ones. The leadership of Explorers, Steve McHale, others, Steve Linseth, Charlie Lougheed, I think they had a vision for what they were trying to do early. They had been experienced, addressed other complex problems before they were in healthcare. So I always liked the way McHale and Lougheed came into healthcare, had not been there before, discerned very quickly, the key drivers, and then went and got them and put them together, and then created a functioning company, and then ultimately an exit with IBM. I think those same rules apply. Sometimes when you've been in healthcare for a while, it's not as easy maybe to see what those dynamics. I know, Jim, you've certainly had several cycles. So that's, I would say that's the continuing thread. And now that digital has reached such a scale throughout the industry, it's only now a matter of time that you'll have more and more consolidation, and you'll have larger and larger transactions. And clearly acquisitions that occurred this year are kind of an echo from where Explorers was, whenever that was, 7 years ago.
Wait till all the SPACs, am I pronouncing it now correctly? SPACs take off, right? I called it, when we had the episode with Lee Shapiro, I called it SPAC, but I guess it's a SPAC.
So our son is in the M&A group at a giant law firm in New York.
Yeah, I know him.
And Jim has met him several times, and they share an undergraduate alma mater. And he's on the SPAC team. He's doing SPAC night and day.
Oh, is he doing SPACs?
Yeah. He's got mentioned in a couple, the last line of a couple
fantastic
articles.
That's the hot area. I'm delighted that a Fordham University kid made well.
I wrote him a note that he's going to be the SPAC king, but if you put those words together, it's SPACing. So.
Like we gotta talk about Little Italy in the Bronx. Like we gotta.
Actually, we're going to be down in New York Friday.
Okay.
No, remember, Jim, there's still travel going on in US. So like,
I don't
because
get that.
we're locked down in different countries here.
Like I take a bike about 5 miles to my house every day. That's all I'm doing.
Well, just a quick pass through there, but nothing like Arthur Avenue and all those great restaurants with Dominic's, at least in my book, on top. I'm feeling very New York. I'm in the middle of reading The Power Broker, which I've read most of Caro's other stuff, but I just never got around to Power Broker.
Okay, I haven't read it.
That's the story of Robert Moses and a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And Moses is so prominent in the redevelopment of the Bronx, the construction of the Fordham Lincoln Center campus,
Okay.
Even though it was a century ago, almost a century ago, all that legacy. So I feel like I should go to Dominic's.
Yeah, totally. Have you been to Dominic's, Eugene?
No, not Dominic's, but I'm just gonna join the Bronx party here because I went to Bronx Science for 1 year. That's it. And then my parents moved to New Jersey, so I'll join the Bronx party. And
yeah, there's no menu. There's no menu. You walk into Dominic's on Arthur's Avenue. There's no menu. And we went last time. We were Sean Coburn, Chris's son, who graduated there. So we watched the basketball game, like very dynamic game, and then we went to Dominic's, no menu. But one of his buddies, who went to school like a few years before me, we lived in the same house, we went and found the same house, and serendipity coming together.
We must have been hanging out somewhere, because I actually grew up in Washington Heights, which was right below Inwood, right? Highly Irish neighborhood. So I don't know, somewhere we all probably crossed paths.
Yeah, there's no menu, and importantly, there's no check. You order, they come back and they tell you what it is at the end of the day.
Right.
And there's no credit card machine either.
Yeah.
So Chris, even though I'm completely not process oriented, but I have the crazy job of reeling us in towards kind of some few magic words for our listeners and viewers, because we're approaching that time frame.
Well, I'd love to hit the one, thinking about, so you've done a lot of mentoring, right? Like a lot of mentoring for people coming in. So thinking about the startups, like the digital health startups on the early side, trying to get into hospital systems, with everything that's going on right now, kind of thoughts on that, like how to
motivational, what do we do?
Well, it's interesting. There's two competing dynamics. One is everything that's been on the digital side was accelerated early this year. So again, there was a chance to break through more quickly. But the evolution of the systems that would allow priority setting and review and kind of rapid assessment, that's only been evolving for the last few years. So by and large, it's hard to sell to a hospital system. It's hard to determine where the decision points really are. I mean, you guys have lived this. You can get stuck in long cycles. We used to always say, let's not make decisions by doing death by pilot. So if you're talking about a big system and a digital solution, maybe go to a small system first and get some data to demonstrate. The more, the thing about a big system, or anything in healthcare, but particularly a big system, they don't want to take undue risk, and time is precious. So to the degree you can get a decision maker, the quicker you can demonstrate what the outcomes will be, the more likely you are to become a vendor to them. And the longer that takes, the harder it is for everyone. You got to determine what the points of decision are. What are we really saving money? Are we solving the problem? What are the metrics? So the more prepared, the more you can get the brief down, I think the better.
Or at the end of this, we'll flash your private email and phone number and to all the viewers and startups now.
That's fine. It just gets forwarded to Health Beacon anyway.
Love it. That was fantastic, Chris. I hope I ran out of, because we're moving from one place to the other. No excuse on my end, but I ran out of vermouth, so it's kind of sad. Yeah. That's usually my drink of choice now that I'm here in Spain.
Oh.
We're a little bit later here in the evening, so we usually actually have a shot. During.
All right. It's what is it? 7:45 in Dublin.
Yeah, exactly. And 8:45 here, and I still got one more US call left after this. But
sorry.
When's the next time you're in Europe? What are you thinking?
Me? Well, I think we won't be doing any work travel till next summer at the earliest. And I was just talking to one of our ID people. You look at the distribution of the vaccines. probably if you're talking about more return to normal, it's a year from now, maybe 11 months.
Right.
So, sadly, I would not imagine any international travel. So I'm going to probably have to watch commitments for the third time.
I was going to say, so maybe not work related, but you're always welcome because the planes are pretty empty. So
yeah, I know but it's now we miss Europe, we miss Ireland. I wish we were there, and whether it's Dublin or Galway or I gotta like the series Normal People because it's written by someone from my father's place of origin in a town that my mother's family was from, about a town, Sligo.
Okay.
So feel something.
Now Ballina is the big place right now because is that Biden's home? That's Biden's.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Next to, or is it Moneygall? Was Obama's ancestral village Moneygall? And
Biden. I don't know if you guys saw this, but he had a fantastic commercial right at the end of the campaign on the Seamus Heaney's The Cure of Troy.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And it's worth watching. I mean, it's a beautiful poem, but it's they put it to a set of black and white images that really cut to the heart of some of the issues and current issues in the U.S.
Yeah, totally.
Well, on that note, with all of our hearts, and I'm sure viewers' hearts, that was awesome. Thank you very much for joining us in your busy schedule and your tie. You're officially crowned as the first and probably only.
It's only because I'm not in the bike shed, so
There you go.
Mass that was kind of Irish, kind of.
And to all the viewers and listeners, hit that subscribe button for our Joe Rogan being famous party. There you go. Keep going.
All right, Eugene, Jim, good to be